Glad to be with you guys. Thanks so much for talking with me about this major update coming to Hunt Showdown, something bordering on sequel size, I think I'll say. And already we're seeing lots of new aspects of the environment here. Even the trees look different. You know, Colorado has a different kind of forestry around it. That makes a lot of sense. So, you know, what informed the direction to kind of take the game here as a location? What does this do for Hunt?
Yeah, so really for us, what we were looking for is what's the next expansion outside of the Bayou that kind of fits the core theme of what our game is. And we knew throughout all of our player feedback and as well as internally, what we really wanted was to really push the boundaries of what we're capable of doing. Right. And so what I mean by that is we had player feedback that said, hey, we really like the verticality in a lot of the compounds. Right.
I think verticality probably gets said a lot in this video.
Like, Evan, as you've played this game, you're familiar with it.
This is something, too, from the little bit I've seen of this video, that a lot of the, like, vistas where you, like, come out of a cave or, like, come up on this hilltop are going to look just insane. And they're probably going to be, like, almost distracting. Like, you're going to come out and be like, wow, that looks beautiful. And then just get, like, shot in the head from, like, across the map somewhere. Be like, wow.
Some of our best moments are rooftop to rooftop gameplay, right? And so we wanted to capture
sniping is going to probably be pretty fun on this.
Leaning into verticality and leaning into this environment that has more slopes, more verticality, and just an overall different.
You know, I was kind of talking, but I think he said verticality like 3 times in a minute.
Scene that we think is a fresh experience inside a Hunt Showdown and really captures, you know, the essence of us while also saying, hey, this is a new way to play Hunt.
So let's talk about these mines. So, you know, my understanding is these mines are going to connect certain compounds. Like, how does that work in terms?
This was this right here was the brainstorming for the map, I think. Verticality? Guys, what do we think about mountain, verticality? Are we in?
Terms of layout.
Yeah. So in the center, a big focal point for us was in the center of our maps, we know that that's where all of our players funnel into. And so we kind of wanted to flip the experience on its head and say, hey, we're going to have 2 mines in the center of the map. And around those mines, there will be compounds that you can get to. So we have a north mine and a south mine. The north mine will connect you to certain compounds inside of there. And then there is a gap between the 2 mines, which also has 2 connecting compounds as well. That leads you to the south mine, which then leads you to another compound. So think of the heart of the map. You have compounds around the edge of the mines, and then you have a connecting route through the mines, which gives you a little bit more safe traverse.
See right here? You're going to have people coming out of this. Their eyes are going to adjust to the light. And then there's going to be like a guy that's like here that just shoots you in the head. You're going to go, oh, my eyes, and then you're dead. Or a guy like up in these windows. You're like, it's bright out here, and then you're dead.
But at the same time, you're losing the information that you would normally get in our maps like Stillwater or any of the first 3 maps, because when you're in the middle of the map, you normally have more information. You have more audio tells, and you have crows, and you have all these elements that kind of inform you where you're at. But when you're in the mines, you're taking the chance of saying, hey, I'm getting less information, but I'm more safe to travel.
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, there are, of course, some underground environments in certain compounds in Hunt. You know, King Snake Mine is sort of a much smaller version of this. It's much more spacious than I expected. And I guess, like, so how many compounds can you reach through the mines, if that makes sense? Like, do they spit out to like 3 or 4 of them or more than that?
Yeah, so you can connect directly to 4 compounds inside of there. Yeah. And so 2 of them kind of back up directly into the mine, and then there's some that are a little bit more on the outskirts. But when you're going through these mines, you'll see signage for like La Plata Mine or O'Donovan Stone. And that's pointing you in the direction to the closest compound that's right there.
What's kind of cool about this map design is it's going to ultimately, I feel like, have 3... It's going to allow for like 3 play styles, right? There's going to be like shotguns that are down in the mines. And, you know, like fanning or levering or whatever down in the mines. And then there's going to be like the more sort of open areas that are going to sort of be your like medium length encounters, like inside the buildings and like around the compounds and stuff. And then there's going to be these long sight lines for sniping, I think. So it's going to... Obviously, the other maps allow for sniping and stuff as well. But I feel like this is going to have very distinct, like, areas where different playstyles are going to shine. Whereas the other maps, it's, you know, sort of a mix all over. Where this is like... You go down the mines, you better hope you can fire fast, or you have, like, you know, a melee or a spear or something, because you're probably going to get, like, demolished. 3-man in mines are going to be a bloodbath, yeah.
But, like, La Plata Mine is one that's right on the outskirts, whereas O'Donovan Mine is right there. And so you get a full connection. So you get to be sneaky, you get to go through the mines, and then boom, you're right at the compound looking at the boss lair.
And what sort of combat encounters are you anticipating in the mine specifically? Like, looking at it, it seems like a great opportunity to stage ambushes.
What we originally thought was, okay, well, how many people are actually going to use the mines early on in playtest, right? Because, you know, you want to be able to get into the combat, and people really like the gunfights in our game. What we see from our playtest and how everyone seems to be enjoying it is a little bit of a hide and go seek kind of experience where you go into the mine and you can set up some traps and you can really catch people off guard, but it's very safe inside of there. So you can peek out, look at a compound, get an understanding of if any threats are there, and then go back in and then reposition to get a different angle. So it's a little bit of hide and go seek, lots of trap gameplay, but the most important part of the mine, and all of our hunt players know this, is normally when you get caught in a position in hunt, it's very hard to get away from your opponents. You're normally like kind of a sitting duck, but in the mines, because there's a lot of different routes and it can lead to a lot of different areas on the map, you're actually able to reposition and flip.
Oh, man. Look at this. This just looks great. I wonder if these are going to be... That's not what I wanted to mark. If these are going to be movable? They're probably stuck in their position. But I wonder if, like, you could use this as a really long traversal. Like, it'd be a really... You'd be severely out in the open. But if you could use this to, like, get up to a higher area without having to, like, traverse up the paths or something.
The experience. So you...
And they're looking at bullet drop. Yeah, there's going to be bullet drop in the update, which a lot of people are probably going to freaking hate, but I don't know. Seems fine to me. I assume they're adding bullet drop as well because of this map. Because of the long, like, sight lines from certain areas you can have. They probably want it to be like, you know, you have the opportunities to snipe, but it's going to be, you know, a little harder.
You have more time to heal. You have different advantage
sort of
points, and you can kind of turn the
bit.
tide on the enemy team if you get caught.
Can you say anything about the updates that the existing maps will get, you know, after the fact?
This is our most polished map we've ever shipped, and it's a big leap forward for us on visual fidelity, both on Gen 9 consoles, but also on PC as well. And so as we were going through this map, we identified all of the assets that we were able to up-res and also just redo because we have a higher budget because our engine can support it. So all of our maps are going to be getting the similar love. So there is major updates coming to our existing, like, maps 1 through 3 that'll be brought to the same level of visual fidelity. And in a couple of them, you know, in like map 2 is a good example. We are looking to intentionally make gameplay changes to some of the compounds to kind of alleviate some of the pain points that our players have expressed to us.
As you prepare to introduce this map in the big update, what is the initial configuration of the maps going to be? Like, will I only be able to play the new Colorado map?
Yeah, that's correct. So for the first 30 days, you will only have access to the Colorado map. And so it's called Mammon's Gulch. So I got to get used to saying Mammon's Gulch versus Colorado. That's when you've been under the hood for a long time. That's what happens. So you'll be on Mammon's Gulch for a full 30 days. And then after 30 days, we will release the Stillwater Bayou map.
I'm sure, as with any update with anything, that's going to, like, upset people that they can't play on the other maps. But to me, like, for 30 days, I mean, you need to learn the new map anyway. So, you know, it being, like, out of rotation, like, you know, every week or something, I think would kind of suck, because obviously you played a lot of Hunt, you know the other maps pretty well, but to me it gives you, you know, some good time to to learn the new one. So
we know from hunt maps is it takes hundreds of hours to really understand a full map because they are 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer with 16 compounds inside of there. So giving people more of a focused attention on the new map is.
I like this little town as well. There's this burning building that looks like you can climb up here and get into. There's more sort of clutter around for cover. More ways to sort of maneuver yourself, like from here around to the building or back, behind this, back around to this building. There's some ways to, like, if you do get caught out, like in the street, then there's ways to sort of get out of that. Although, it's kind of your fault, I guess, for walking in the middle of the street, but
actually beneficial for the players, but also very beneficial for us, so we can understand, hey, what's meshing well with you guys? What compounds do we need to look at based on player feedback to see if we can make any adjustments?
Be a breath of fresh air, yeah,
Scott,
definitely.
At a top level, what kinds of behaviors and experiences did you have in mind as you guys were building this map, right? I mean, Hunt is wonderful because it can accommodate solo stealth sniping and, like, people that play really loud and just run in with shotguns and melee weapons, right? Like, it makes room for that spectrum of experiences, right? But I know, of course, that, like, you guys have had some thoughts around stalemates, for example, in the last couple of years, and how you manage that, I guess, as a type of behavior. So, like, what were kind of those big behaviors or experiences you had in mind?
Plan on release of the update? Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
going to touch on the stalemate
Or at least I would like
that's
to.
the most interesting of what we've done here across all of our compounds, right? So if you look at the history of Hunt, what we've done to all of our maps is maps that have, or compounds that have very few choke points or very few entrances and exits from them, we've kind of tactically increased how many options players get. And so for Mammon's Gulch, what we said is, hey, we're going to make sure that every compound has 6 meaningful entrances and exits for attackers and defenders. And so that's kind of like a loose rule with 6. Sometimes you get a little bit less, but ultimately the main goal was provide more entrances and exits for attackers and defenders to take into consideration, while at the same time saying, hey, we know that we want to increase the engagement between the two, but we
see, this is kind of immediately sort of what he's talking about more exits and entrances and stuff. So, like, right here, right, there's
6 meaningful entrances.
You can obviously go in up here, up top. You have this
exits for
under area
and
here,
and so that's kind of like a loose rule with 6. Sometimes you get a little bit less, but ultimately the main goal.
And then there's this elevator that's here that you can take up or down.
Was provide more entrances and exits for attackers and defenders to take into consideration, while at the same time saying.
And then there's also here, even just here, there's this doorway which you can enter, but you also have a way to both attack and defend from this window. That gives you an extra angle without having to open the door. You can throw in. There's this gap here that you could throw things into or out of. There's a lantern that's here so that a defender can shoot the lantern and burn this area to keep you from, like, away from this window. So there's a lot of. You can tell with what he's talking about. There's a lot of opportunities, it looks like, in this new map for attacking and defending.
We know that we want to increase the engagement between the two, but we don't want it to be too attackers friendly, and we don't want it to be too defender friendly. So try to strike a nice balance.
Wow, look at this. Just look at this, like.
And we don't want it to be too defender friendly. So
lighting here. This looks so good.
Try to strike a nice.
Graphics card is going to hate me. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how optimized it is, like how optimized the new engine is.
Nice balance between that. And what we see is stalemates can get broken a lot easier now because players are able to get out. But at the same time, it's also a lot harder to defend. So if you try to turtle up, if you don't bring traps and you don't fortify correctly, it is a game changer. So we are seeing more traps get used across the board, which also informed a trap change decision with how players can actually place traps.
I think this trap change thing they're doing is really cool too. And maybe he's about to talk about it, but I know I'm pausing a lot. But now you can, like, place traps, like, on walls and, like, across doorways.
It seems really exciting that, like, that system in particular is going to be pretty flexible, it seemed like.
Yeah.
But are there like particular limitations around it? So you wanted to avoid, like, I don't know, players doing something truly, I don't know, like evil with how they place traps, you know what I mean?
Brutality and hunt are pretty synonymous, so we leave it up to the player's creativity as to how far they'll push it with the traps. Now, we do have constraints as to, which way, how the trap placement does work. What we feel really good about is them being able to go across windows, across the board. So if you go through the window, you trigger the trap. That feels really good.
Oh, this looks so good.
But we haven't seen anything too game-breaking or punishing inside of there. And internally, we have a lot of trap placers. David, the GM, is notorious for placing 1 million traps, and I hit every single one of them when I'm in his team. And it always gets me. And he's like, Scott, I pinged it. And I'm like, I know, but I missed it.
Yeah, we've all had that teammate for sure who's a little zealous about
yep, that's me.
Loading
Give
up
me
the
the
compound.
action. Yeah.
So it looks like we're on a ridge here. I'm seeing some train tracks. Talk to us more about the kind of particular biomes or the feel of these areas.
What we really wanted to capture across the board was this feeling that when you're on the mountain, we want you to feel like you are on the mountain. Now, you still have places that you can hide and all those elements, but what you're seeing right here, one of the biggest changes that we've made to our forests is that they're dense forests, right? When you see these pine straws and you see all these like needles, right? These needle trees, it makes player detection a little bit harder. And so you have to be more cognizant of, okay, what's around me, where the players could be, what sound is triggering, which also informed our...
Look at this forest. Oh, fighting in here is going to be really fun and really brutal too, because, like, I mean, already in Hunt, you can, hide behind some thick trees. It looks like for the most part, these are going to be skinnier pine trees, but it's more dense. So there's going to be lots of, like, little pockets and dark areas in here to hide in.
Our decision to say, hey, we need 2 new sound animal attractors. So we actually introduced bats and we also introduced cows. And so when you hear a cow, you're like, oh, okay, players coming from this spot, I know that's where the cow is. And you kind of learn that over time. But, I'd say key element for us was we wanted to capture the feeling of what it was like to be in Colorado and how we can lend itself very nicely to Hunt Showdown gameplay. And at the beginning, we had very dense trees, and it didn't create the best gameplay experience, so we kind of trimmed them down. And then we started intentionally opening up more sight lines, so snipers would actually have a pretty good time playing on this map. Because before, you can imagine when you look at all those trees, like sniper players, like what line of sight do you actually get on people? So we made intentional decisions to kind of make sure that that playstyle was very prominent here.
Right. I mean, certainly with verticality and those long sight lines, it feels like you guys are really accommodating sniping. But likewise, with the introduction of bullet drop, it's becoming a little bit more difficult in some ways. So am I thinking about that the right way? You're sort of like, you're not pushing sniping to the side or even anything close to eliminating it as a behavior, but it has this new dimension, literally.
Yeah, correct. It's got sniping has a whole new experience to it. You have bullet drop that you have to take into consideration. And then in this biome, the other thing you have to take into consideration is, sure, you might actually get this sight line on the enemy team, but because it's a longer sight line, do you have the ability to actually push your advantage after you've downed that player and then be able to wipe out the team or burn his body, right? And what we see...
It's definitely going to be an easier, or not easier, but it's going to be... you're not going to have to worry about that so much with solos, because I think they're changing Necromancer to where it's a burn trait. So now I think if someone has Necromancer, they can get up once. So, you can down someone from far away, and then maybe they get up and you snipe them again, and then that's it. Whereas if Necromancer was still the same and you were sniping somebody that was, like all the way over here or whatever, they might get up, you shoot them again, and then you go to push them, and they get up again, so I think they definitely had to change the Necromancer trait for this, to make this map viable for that kind of playstyle, which a lot of people hate Necromancer anyway.
Throughout all of our playtests is, a lot of players, like, if you intentionally want to snipe, you have avenues for that playstyle to work. but you have to be deliberate with it. And that's the key for us. We want each of these play styles to be deliberate. And when you accommodate this landscape, we also need to make sure that players who are running only melee options, if you want to run just the katana with Berserker, you have the ability to take deliberate decisions and deliberate pathing.
Definitely want to be in the mines for that, I think.
The advantage on your side.
I'm guessing, like, you know, above the mine, there is traversable area for players. So, like, if, for example, somebody has a bounty and they run into the mine to get to an extract, and I can track them above ground, right? I can sort of go run in parallel with them. Do you think that's a viable technique that you had in mind?
Yeah, for sure. And so the hard piece there is, well, the balance that we wanted to strike is, if you choose to get the bounty and you go through the mine, you're going to have a direct shot, and you have the advantage because you have the direct shot because you're under the mine. If you're above and you're running around the mountaintop, you might have to take a little bit of a detour. And so you get this cat and mouse game of like, okay, where's the bounty carrier going to go? Are they going to continue to go south? Or are they going to go right? I know they have 3 exits. How am I going to take advantage of that?
And you mentioned bats a little moment ago. You know, certainly those noise hazards are some of my annoyances in Hunt Showdown, and a really purposeful part of the game. Do bats only appear in the caves or the mines?
Right now, yes, that is correct. We have aspirations to put them in more places, you know, like inside of certain buildings to give you additional sound cues right now, but you know, the bats in the mines just feels like such a slam dunk for us from a thematic sense that's where we put all the focus on. And candidly, you need a little bit more distinct audible call outs when people are leaving the mines because you have that covered.
How would you compare this map to the other maps in the game? I mean, we've heard about verticality, but in other aspects,
yes, there's more verticality.
More what and less what, might you say?
I'd say map 4 feels completely different than
feels
any
vertical,
map that you've
even
ever played inside of Hunt Showdown. And so when you take into consideration the biome and all of the verticality, the dense forest, the new compounds, and a lot of our compounds we've actually built.
We're going up, baby.
Different. We actually changed the DNA as to how we construct them. Before, you know, you'd have a traditional compound, right? You'd have an outside perimeter that would have intentional holes, and then inside of there you'd have the boss building, and then you'd have some satellite buildings inside of there. What you see in this one is we actually have what we called internally kind of like mega structures in a couple of them, where you have to commit to the area to then be a part of it. So I'd say this map more than ever is your loadout determines how you're going to play the map very intentionally. Whereas, you know, if you play in the other maps, if you take a sniper, you have a lot of different angles that you can take, and you can put it to use generally anywhere. On this map, it's very intentional as to what.
It's almost like that's exactly what I was saying 10 minutes ago in the video.
You take. So if you take a sniper, you're going to choose different routes than if you were to take a shotgun or even a long ammo.
It's very deliberate play styles in certain areas of the game.
A weapon in general, right, without a scope. You have a little bit more verticality.
Crytek, hire me, because I just get it.
And you have a little bit more
only up, no down.
Mines in the middle. But you have these routes that you can take that are a little bit more covered than what you're used to in our existing maps. You have more surprises, right? So you have a lot of more emergent fights that happen in areas that previously would be underutilized in our other maps. So it's really, you're kind of always, it's pulling a lever almost as to when you're going to get into engagement and how it's going to work. So more surprises, more intentionality in your loadout, more intentionality on audio and how you approach any one decision. And then for, you know, the verticality piece, this is one of the coolest compounds that we did. It's
you said it again.
So it's our take on a pit map. So very similar to any of the undergrounds that we've ever done, but we intentionally built it to say, okay, what are the problems that we have with our underground layers, and how can we build around that and really fix it? And so this one, you know, you have a lot of options. And so you have a building on top of you that you're able to fortify. You can also leave the compound, but because it's more tight and constricted and it's in this quarry, you can also fortify this better than almost any other compound on this map.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this footage here, it just seems very big. I mean, I know, like, of course, I put hundreds of hours into different areas already in Hunt, but like, I don't know, somehow this seems larger.
It's way more grand, and I'd say, you know, Stefan Heinrich and the entire art team on this map have done such an.
Wow. That looks like the edge of the map there, so this quarry sort of leads into into an edge here along the map, but wow.
Incredible job of capturing how big this world is and how
Video
far
I
we
sent, I
can
think the
push
guy
it.
made a
And that's
verticality
big shout out
counter.
to our
Yes,
engine
I
team
saw
for giving
that.
us the ability to be able to do that. So we wanted to push the boundaries across the board. We wanted to feel bigger than what it is. Even though the dimensions of the map are the same, we want players to feel this sense of verticality and this intentionality behind it.
Stop saying it. You gotta stop. It does for sure feel, even just from this video, feel bigger. And I think that's just because of the taller trees, the mountain range in the background, and some of these areas are a little more just open in like these bigger sight lines because of the verticality. But it does feel a lot bigger for sure.
How is performance so far in this map been for you guys from a technical perspective? Because I know you're adding DLSS, for example.
Yeah, so
Oh yeah, we're getting DLSS. Oh, let's go.
you know, I can just say like we've kind of exceeded all of our expectations as to what we thought we would be able to get
Everyone's GPUs rejoiced.
on this map, and that's mostly shout outs to the new engine for us empowering us to be able to do that. But performance is as good, if not way better, than our existing maps.
So right here, we're seeing what looks like a mining facility, or is this an example of one of the mega structures you talked about?
So this is Oro Gordo mine, and so right here, you know, when you think about like traditional hunt compounds,
Yeah, there's
right,
a lot
you
of
kinda
good
see a
map
perimeter
design
here,
in this so far, I feel
but
like.
this structure backs directly into the mine, and so when you enter the boss
Ooh.
layer,
Okay.
you also have a direct shot into the mines. But that also means you have to take,
Oh.
you have to be cognizant of the
So this is what he was talking about, where the compounds, there's two that lead directly into the mine, and then there's going to be two that are sort of like a little bit away from this.
mine that's right there. And so this megastructure connects, it's kind of like an L shape. So this isn't, what you're seeing isn't necessarily the boss building, but it's connected to it. And so inside of here, you can take a lift to go across, or you have to choose a route that's a little bit more risky and puts you exposed.
At a top level, it feels like this isn't like too out of line. It's obviously like 16 compounds, which I think is the same as the other.
Let's look at this here. East Mountain Corn. Oh, this must be in the center here. It must be the mine network. A plot of mine. Timber, Preston Oil, and then a river fork. Or multiple sort of river forks here. A lake over here, it looks like. A pretty sizable lake. Sheen Gorge, Split River Mill. The gas works, multiple buildings there. Gordo Mine, and then the O'Donovan Stone both lead into the mines. And then there's the mill and the La Plata Mine on each side of that. Wow.
On Showdown maps. But you know, we've got this bird's eye view. Can you kind of talk me through the design direction of what we're seeing here? I can see the railroad, for example, threading through a couple compounds.
So one of the biggest changes that we made from the design direction side is in maps 1 through 3, we have this terminology called POIs. And POIs are compounds which always give 2 clues, essentially. And in our existing maps, what we would do is we would say, hey, the two clue, like the POIs would always be in central locations, right? But you want to, and so we do that because everyone has a fair opportunity in order to get there. We flipped that on its head for Colorado, and we said, hey, we're actually going to put the POIs on the outskirts. So Preston Oil is a POI that features 2 clues, as well as Gasworks and Miner's Folly. Those 3 all have 2 clues inside of there. So those are POIs. And what that's done is that's kind of changed how players play. Because in our existing maps, you know, you have that moment where you're like, oh, okay, well, I can skip this first compound, go to the second one and get 2 clues, and then that changes the way that you play. Whereas in this one, if you spawn at Kingfisher Foundry in the bottom middle, you might actually just go left to Preston Oil to go ahead and get 2 clues. And that changes your pathing, and it changes your decision making as to how you want to approach any one decision. So that was a big part of it. But from there, you know, it all started with our anchoring statement of we wanted to have mountains in the middle, and those mountains need to have mines. And so we started with, okay, let's create 2 mines.
They need to have verticality, and they need to have mines.
These mountain ranges in the middle, and how can we mold everything else around that, and does it play well?
I guess I'm also wondering, are there any compounds that have, or maybe you can just sort of talk about one as an example, like where the adjacent compound has an interesting relationship to another compound beside it?
Really a big focal point of the engagements happen between O'Donovan Stone, La Plata Mine, Oro Gordo Mine, and Split River. Okay, so those are the 4 in the middle. Okay, now Montero's Malt has a line of sight on O'Donovan Stone, but O'Donovan Stone can see gasworks, for example, and they can also see the crossing of people going into Montero's Malt. So if you spawn Grizzly Lodge, you're like, cool, I go to O'Donovan Stone. Now, if I'm playing a sniper, I'm watching that cross, and that's intentional for me.
That's going to be pretty fun.
But really, the whole core of fast rotations,
annoying to play against,
get good line of sight on players, ends up being between the 2 mines, because that is an elevated position, and so you can very quickly move from Split River to La Plata Mine, and that is a big game changer for us. As to how people play and how they position, because there is a strategy that we see inside of our playtest where people will just go into the middle, and then they set up control around that. They fortify the mines to the best of their ability, and they're just playing to the strength of their loadout to say, okay, well, I got 1 clue. I know it could be in La Plata Mine or it could be in Split River, and now we're going to just see where people are coming from, and they get the advantage from that.
Learning this map, though, is definitely going to take some time. Learning all the intricacies of, like, this mine connects to here, and people, like, you know, rotate from this place up to here, and, you know, like you was talking about the sight lines from one place to the other, to learn, like, okay, well, I'm in this location, and I know that these 2 mines or whatever can see me. So you have to be like, okay, well, there's potentially a sniper up there that's going to see me. So I'm going to have to, you know, loop around this way, or try and get into a mine this way, or whatever. It's going to be interesting to learn all of that, to, like, avoid these spots.
The other thing that we did was basically right between Deadfall Timber, La Plata Mine, and Kingfisher Foundry, there is a watchtower, and I think we can see it in the video. I forget exactly where it's at, but there's a spot that you can see this, you know, the iconic Hunt Showdown watchtower, right? We put that on a hill. And when you're in there, you can see Deadfall Timber. You can see a direct line of sight on Deadfall Timber. You can see almost all of La Plata Mine, and you actually get to see Kingfisher as well.
It seems like from what we've seen of the mines, you've not tried to make them too bottlenecky, right?
Correct.
Because,
yeah, that was a bit. We learned that lesson early on in playtesting. The more choke pointy it was, the less likely players were to go in it.
Yeah, I mean, that can be intimidating unto itself. Like, it seemed like there was a lot of choice available to me in terms of diversion and sort of losing people in the mines in a good way.
So La Plata Mine is another one of our mega structures. So this one is basically one giant building that sticks together and has a bunch of different meaning. But the other thing is depending on where you approach, it's either you're fighting all the way on an upward angle or you're fighting down. So if you come from the mines, you're at the highest point of elevation of this compound, and you are looking down and you're seeing every area down to the left. Whereas if you come from here, you're fighting up. Ooh. If you come from the lower end, you have a very good idea as to where your enemies can be. But if you come from the higher side, we want to make sure that, well, you might not have perfect information, so you have to be more intentional with where your sight lines are, and you're more exposed. So higher risk to come from the higher verticality, lower risk to come from lower. So this, we see tons of engagements happen in and around this area. So this right here, you get to see this. And so if we pause
Jake.
Right here, if you don't mind.
Brother?
This is La Plata Mine. You have full view over this, and you also see the entrance from the north mine that comes out, one of the entrances. To the right, where those pine trees are, That is
How you doing, Jake?
where the south mine, one of the south mine exits are, as well as the one right over to the right. So you are gaining a lot of intel here. Right over this hill that you see in the back distance, that is the connective part to Split River. And so this whole area ends up being this massive contention point. And when you get a one boss contract and it's in one of these two mines or one of these two compounds, whew, good luck, man. It's a hoot. This right here,
It's a hoot and a half, brother. This seems crazy. I don't know that we're gonna watch the rest of this like 9 minutes, but man, it seems crazy.
How you see them interacting with this map?
yeah. So at first we're going to start off with 3 times a day, kind of the traditional. We have 1 nighttime and then 2 daytime maps, and then from there, we're really excited to get fog into this map as well as thunder shower. We think thunder shower is one of the most dynamic times a day that we have.
Hate fog, love thunder shower. I'm doing all right. We're just checking out this little rundown of the new hunt map and the new updates.
And we think it has played really well on this, but it's not quite ready to ship with it on launch. So what we don't know, and I'm excited about, is which ones we want to try on this. Well, one of the fan favorites has been Inferno, right? Now Inferno could flip this entire experience all on its head.
Well, they've already announced that they're doing Inferno like day 1, I think, as an event. Which I don't know that I agree with doing immediately. Let me see. Scorched Earth official event trailer. Our latest event arrives on August 15th. Yeah, so this is the event trailer. I don't know that I agree with doing this immediately on on launch day. I feel like I would rather learn the basics of the new map, but
greed has always driven people to dark places and darker deeds. To get a little bigger slice of the pie. To cut a partner out of their share. But out here, a bigger share means bigger nightmares.
ooh.
Darker mysteries that don't get answers.
Is that like a spike launcher? What is that?
More folks bringing torment, more threats to avoid.
Oh.
Out here, death wears more than one face. Out here, greed and revenge baptize all in their wake.
Good grief. Alright, I get it.
Until nothing is left but scorched earth.
Scorched Earth. Maybe this isn't an Inferno thing. I thought this was an Inferno thing on the map, but maybe it's not. It's just a event, I guess. I heard Scorched Earth and figured it was like an Inferno thing, but I guess not. Something I did see, though, that would be cool is, imagine if Hunt was like, I guess the closest thing would be like Red Dead Online, right? Where it's like this big, huge map, but it's hunt, and you have to like make camp and like hunt for food, and like you have to camp and rest at certain points, where you start to like get tired or have debuffs, and then other players in the night could come and like raid your camp. But it was all in the hunt universe. Just throwing that idea out there. If anybody wants it. I don't know, might be kind of sick.